There are very few people who use Mr. to address women, but for Zhang Chunru, everyone spontaneously calls them Mr. Zhang Chunru's grandfather escaped from the Nanjing massacre and went to the United States. After Zhang Chunru grew up, in order to understand this period of history, he searched all over the world. Documents and images kept in various places, and went to Nanjing to do detailed evidence collection with survivors of the massacre. In the process of writing the book Nanjing Massacre, Zhang Chunru couldn't sleep all night. Her mind was full of disemboweled women, children nailed to the wall, pairs of cut-off breasts. Japanese soldiers also forced fathers to rape their daughters and sons to rape their mothers, and they then watched as fun. Zhang Chunru had a mental breakdown. After the book was published, it was banned by Japan. Japan denied the Nanjing massacre, and militarists sent people to assassinate her. Zhang Chunru had hallucinations and fell asleep by taking a large amount of sedatives. Zhang Chunru wrote such a passage: "I feel like I'm being targeted by the CIA or some other organization, I'm being followed on the street, and I can't face the pain and suffering in the future." On November 9, 2004, this woman who once ran for 300,000 innocent people in Nanjing parked her white car beside a deserted road, then pulled out a pistol, and ended her life at the age of 36. The doctor gave a testimonial that she suffered from severe depression during the period of writing Nanjing Massacre, and had to end her painful life. One Chinese people get hurt because they always love to forgive. As long as the Chinese have defeated the enemy once, the next step is to forgive. This is the forgiveness gene of the winner in the culture. During the Tang Dynasty, Japan landed in North Korea. Hometown. The Chinese don't hold grudges against the losers, and they always think in their hearts, the poor people come from poor mountains and evil waters. As long as the Japanese people are rich, they will not come out to make trouble. Passed on to Japan. However, during the Wanli period of the Ming Dynasty, Japan repeated its old tricks and planned to invade China through North Korea. The loser also felt the greed of Japan, but for the loser, he did not sweep the whole, but chose the forbidden sea. "I will not beat you, let you go, and you just don't come here." However, history repeated itself. The century-old tragedy after the end of Qing Dynasty was all caused by Japan. In 1945, the Japanese left, and tragically, they left behind a devastated land of China. But fortunately, we were unwilling to win this time, because it was not a one-on-one victory, but a collective victory of the anti-fascist alliance. Japan was not convinced by the loss, and did not think that the Chinese defeated him. It is a good thing that one is not reconciled to winning and the other is not convinced to lose. At least among the Chinese people, no one is willing to forgive this matter. If China wins the duel, it must choose to forgive again. In the harmony and laughter, it will definitely bring ruin and death to future generations. Choosing to forget is the second Nanjing massacre. When Zhang Chunru was writing, he often asked some young people, including young people in China, they all knew about the Nanjing massacre. It was mentioned in textbooks, but it was just a series of numbers. No one knew how miserable it was. It seems impossible to make young people hate Japan. Some people even said, "Then what does this have to do with me now?" Zhang Chunru told them very seriously, choosing to forget is the second Nanjing massacre. At night in the United States, Zhang Chunru turned over the photo materials provided by the progressives, and she was pulled back into the historical scene. On the streets of Nanjing, the female death posture is that her legs are spread, and her lower body is stuffed into a wooden stick, branches, and weeds. A Japanese soldier stuffed a beer bottle into a young woman and shot her dead after raping her. Another rape victim was found with a golf club stuck in her genitals. On December 22nd, near the Tongji Gate, the Japanese raped the wife of a barber, then stuffed firecrackers into her lower body and set them on fire. Not only are live burials, castration, mutilation, and roasting alive commonplace for fun, but worse tortures also occur from time to time, such as hanging people by their tongues on iron hooks, German shepherd shreds. Zhang Chunru beat her chest hard, and her whole body began to suffer from pain. As she was writing, she bumped against the wall. After that, she slept abnormally, often waking up in the middle of the night, and could only calm down by taking medicine. She told herself, who seemed to have separated her soul, that she must persevere, even if she used her life to write the truth of history. 3. Abandoning hate education is a crime against future generations. At that time, some people in China began to call for not doing hate education, especially in textbooks. It is inhumane to start hate from the baby. He also pointed out that Western education is an education of love. Because of love, they will pass on love, which is the spirit of a gentleman in the West. So the textbooks began to introduce Long Yingtai's articles. It is fortunate that the articles are small. The rise of a big country is not needed, but the dignity of the small people is only needed. Zhang Chunru has been staying in the United States. She is deeply aware of this kind of hypocrisy. This kind of love education is pure nonsense. Although Japanese and Western textbooks do not contain explicit words of hatred, almost all of their media are discrediting China. There are very few positive articles, and no one sees them in some newspapers with a small circulation. If our media publicizes the true colors of their wolf ambitions in this way, how can they use textbooks to do this work? Our media all claim that hate education is not allowed, but their media is full of slander. They are full of hate education, and it has continued to this day and will continue in the future. In order to write the book Nanjing Massacre, Zhang Chunru went to Japan. She interviewed some Japanese veterans who participated in the Nanjing Massacre. Hua and the Nanjing Massacre felt no guilt at all, and considered it honorable. In the face of such a Japan, giving up hatred is a great crime against our children and grandchildren. For know the pain and face it bravely. There is a movie called 1942, which was extremely dismal at the box office. Later, in order to make up for the losses of investors, Feng Xiaogang took half a month to make a random comedy film. He himself thought it was a bad film, but within a week, he took in 30 million at the box office. When accepting the award, Feng Xiaogang said, "I earn nothing by making movies seriously, but I make a lot of money by making bad movies." I asked a few friends, and they said this. I know that 1942 is a tragic film about Japan's invasion of China. Young people know about that period of history. It was too bitter, and I really didn't have the courage to watch it. I hate the Japanese, but to restore the real history in front of me one by one, I might choose to commit suicide. I can't stand such a scene. Zhang Chunru's writing of this book caused her to endure unimaginable mental pressure and pain. But such a scene, the Japanese invaders were able to do it without any moral guilt. I was bombed by an atomic bomb in Japan. Since then, I have worshipped ghosts every year, and I have organized students to pay homage to them, telling the truth about the tragic image of the atomic bomb to future generations in Japan. A murderous invader has now become a victim of World War II. Everyday talk, talk monthly, talk every year. Once China wants to talk about Japan's crimes of aggression, they will jump up and say undermining the friendship between China and Japan and saying that you are engaging in hate education. 5. The international community wants to erase this period of history, but the Chinese cannot. In order to write this book, Zhang Chunru first searched for materials in the United States, but most of the historical documents published in the United States did not pay attention to the massacre. Nor did a thorough examination of American high school history textbooks contain a specific account of the Nanjing Massacre. Among the comprehensive or authoritative histories of World War II read by the American public, there is hardly a single account of the Nanjing Massacre in detail. The American Pictorial History of World War II, 1966, the best-selling single-volume pictorial history of World War II for many years, contains not a single photograph, or even a word, about the Nanking Massacre. In Winston Churchill's famous Memoirs of the Second World War, 1959, at 1,065 pages, there is not a single word about the rape of Nanking to be found, and in Henry Michel's classic 947 pages the same is true in Records of World War II, 1975. Later, Zhang Chunru looked for information in the diaries and diplomatic documents of foreign missionaries, university professors, doctors, and businessmen who stayed in Nanjing. She also visited the Nanjing Massacre photo exhibition held by Chinese in San Francisco. First-hand information on the Nanjing Massacre, Rabi's diary. Why do Westerners not care about the life and death of Chinese people? Because they think that the lives of Chinese people are worthless. In 1938, Japanese soldier Shiro said frankly in his diary in Nanjing, "Now a pig is more valuable than a Chinese life. Because pork can still be eaten." The Japanese said, "Killing a Chinese feels like killing a pig." After World War II, the United States became the sugar father of the Japanese, and the Nanjing Massacre was naturally missing from American literary and artistic works. But the Chinese cannot lose this history, unless you want your children and grandchildren to be pigs under the knife of the Japanese. 6. If you are rich, you will be beaten, and if you are poor, you will be robbed. We often say that if you are poor, you will be beaten. This is completely wrong. It is precisely because you are rich that you will be beaten. If you are poor and have nothing, why does he come here? As for the West and Japan, their history has always maintained that poverty requires robbery. In the history of China, every time there is a little accumulation, others will come to beat you. It was in the past, but it has come now, and it will be even more so in the future. As for the West and Japan, as soon as they decline, they will come out to rob. Isn't it already here, and it will be even more so in the future? Why do you get beaten up every time you are rich? It is because of self-righteous magnanimity and forgiveness. Reflect, did we do something wrong? Why do we keep hitting me? Who hurts others' teeth, but opposes revenge and advocates tolerance, don't get close to him. Let them resent, I will not forgive any of them. Knowing that Zhang Chunru was going to publish the Nanjing massacre, the Japanese militarists sent people to follow her and put a lot of pressure on her, but she was still very strong and never compromised with the other party. She is not that generous and she chooses not to forgive. Never let the Japanese go. The Japanese worship war criminals at the Yasukuni Shrine, which is politically equivalent to building a cathedral for Hitler in the center of Berlin. Conclusion. Dismember the body, dig out the heart, bury alive, dismember. Every paragraph of writing is like a knife, digging Zhang Chunru's heart. In those blurred photos, the brutal butcher knife of the Japanese army, the miserable Chinese, and the pile of corpses made her feel a huge shock. The Japanese hated Zhang Chunru deeply. They slandered Zhang Chunru's works as random fabrications and denied the Nanjing massacre. The Japanese version of this book has not been published, and most Japanese people cannot see this book about historical truth. Japanese right-wingers also repeatedly issued death threats to Zhang Chunru. According to her mother, Chunru always received some malicious letters, one of which contained 2 bullets. Zhang Chunru said, if I was born in that era, that place, and that time, I would be one of the corpses. After half a century, no one would pay attention to an unknown corpse. The criminals would even say that it didn't happen at all, and that especially scares me. He who forgets the past is doomed to repeat it. Every time I look back at the atrocities committed by the Japanese, my spirit will be beaten once. On November 9, 2004, Zhang Chunru, who was so depressed that she became insane, chose to commit suicide. Let them grudge, I forgive none. Mr. Zhang Chunru, whose ancestral home is in Huayan, people in his hometown have not forgotten her and built a memorial hall for her. China and Japan have recently had another dispute, that is, the issue of the Chinese national anthem. The Japanese believe that this is an anti-Japanese song. China cannot put hatred in the national anthem. Every day when the flag is raised in squares and schools, this song will be played. Anti-Japanese songs, which seriously affected the friendly relations between the two countries. The birth of the Chinese national anthem is related to a movie called Children of the Storm, which was originally planned to be released as its theme song. In the beginning, the movie didn't have a theme song. It was Tianhan who first found the lyrics. Nair composed a song for the lyrics. On May 10, 1935, March of the Volunteers was published in the China Daily, officially published. This song is very popular, but the lyrics have been disputed several times. One time point is 1949, and the other time point is 1978. On the eve of the founding ceremony in 1949, painter Su Byung suggested that March of the Volunteers be the national anthem, and everyone agreed. But for the part of the lyrics, some people raised doubts, saying that the Chinese nation has reached the most dangerous time is no longer suitable. There was a lot of discussion among the people, and there was a heated discussion on whether the lyrics should be revised. Later, Chairman Mao made a final decision and said, "We should not forget that period of history. Peace is hard won, but internal and external troubles will not disappear forever. It is also a revolutionary spirit to forget danger in peace." Well, it is settled like this. March of the Volunteers. I will never change the lyrics. Don't change a single word. In 1978, the matter of revising the lyrics of the national anthem was brought to the fore again. This time, the proposal was supported by most people, so a national anthem collection team was quickly established, the lyrics were revised, and the lyrics were signed collectively. The newly revised national anthem retains Nair's music. The lyrics are much gentler, and almost all the words that remind of Japan have been diluted. But for the newly revised national anthem, there are quite a few people who oppose it. They think that the rhythm of the new lyrics is not as good as the original lyrics, and the content also lacks passion and imagery. It is just a few simple slogans, which is really a bit perfunctory. Everyone believes that the original song was born in the most difficult time of the Chinese nation, and accompanied people through a long journey. Whenever I feel depressed, I can always draw new strength from the melody of the song. From 1980 to 1982, the revision committee received suggestions from all parties, and generally agreed with the original idea of preparing for danger in times of peace, and felt that the national anthem should inspire the patriotic spirit of the Chinese people. In view of the deep affection of the masses for the original national anthem, in 1982, the new words adopted in 1978 were revoked, and the March of the Volunteers, co-written by Tianhan and Nai, was restored as the national anthem of the People's Republic of China. The original national anthem has been used so far, but the Japanese can't sit still, saying that China should face the past history and the current world pattern with a broad mind, and using anti-Japanese songs as the national anthem is obviously hatred of Japan and is not in line with China's national anthem. The friendship between the two countries also damages the image of China. Little Japan is very bad. In order to engage in historical nihilism, he falsified all the history of aggression against China at home, and even turned black and white, saying that he was the victim of the war, and that Japan's aggression was self-defense and counterattack. Now as China becomes stronger, they are afraid and guilty, and strongly urge China not to mention the past history. Japan actually submitted an application to the United Nations agency, asking us to immediately rectify the national anthem, but the UN agency stated that the change of the national anthem must be decided by the people of the country and only in line with the wishes of the people. Regarding the Japanese provocation, China made it clear that it would not accept this unreasonable request. The national anthem is a testimony of the Chinese people's bloody struggle against the Japanese invaders. It has historical and national significance. China will not erase its own historical memory, let alone forget that painful history. If Japan wants to gain its so-called sense of security, there is only one way, and that is for those who are still engaged in militarism to commit suicide collectively. However, there are also a small number of ergosi who actually think that the Japanese are right, and feel that the crying, beating and killing in the national anthem cannot keep pace with the times. These are people who have forgotten their roots. We need to know that among the fascist countries, the only country that has not been liquidated is Japan, and because it has not been liquidated, it has become arrogant, and even thinks that it is an honor for him to engage in aggression. As for the impact on Sino-Japanese friendship and Sino-Japanese cooperation mentioned by the Japanese, that is even more absurd. A country that denies the Nanjing massacre is even worthy of talking about friendship? As for cooperation, will we cooperate with you by insulting the martyrs? Every inch of land under our feet was bought by the martyrs with their blood and lives. The Japanese must give an account to the Chinese martyrs before they are worthy of talking about friendship and cooperation. Since you want to erase this blood debt, the Chinese can only do so in time. Always remind yourself that the blood debt is still unsolved, and anyone who supports Japanese militarism, whether he is Japanese or someone else, is the enemy of the Chinese people. Japan opposes China's national anthem, but Japan's national anthem is blatantly concealing evil intentions. The Japanese national anthem is called Kim no Dai, which has only more than 20 characters. The translation is like this: the Japanese emperor's imperial tradition has been handed down to Cho, and has been handed down to Yacho. Until the small rock turns into a giant rock, until the giant rock grows moss. It is full of expansionary ambitions, so Japan has taught children militaristic thinking since kindergarten, which shows that the wolf's ambition has never changed. We also solemnly propose that Japan should change its national anthem. The Emperor of Japan is the leader of the fascists and Nazis. Today, he is actually praised in the form of the national anthem, and it is said that it will be handed down to Yacho. The principal who had made progress refused to lead the students to sing the Japanese national anthem. In order to increase the implementation rate of the national anthem and the national flag at school ceremonies, the Japanese Education Commission continued to exert pressure on the principal. There was also a suicide incident involving the principal of Sira High School in Hiroshima Prefecture. The Tokyo Metropolitan Education Commission simply issued an administrative circular ordering all public schools in Tokyo to hang the national flag and sing the national anthem at their anniversary activities, entrance ceremonies, and graduation ceremonies. Teachers who disobey will be punished administratively. Students who disobey will also be punished. The Japanese themselves are daydreaming about the Greater East Asia co-prosperity sphere all day long, trying in vain to launch another aggressive war of territorial expansion. Now they point fingers at China's national anthem, saying that anti-Japanese songs have hurt them. This behavior is not only weird, but also the revival of the ambitions of the descendants of the Nazis. Not only did Japan fail to repent for the crimes it committed against the Chinese people, but it has repeatedly made unreasonable demands on China, which the Chinese people must categorically reject. The Chinese national anthem is the voice of all the people, carrying the spiritual sustenance of all nations for a century, and reminding people not to forget the bloody massacre of the invaders. In the future, there must be a general liquidation against the Japanese Nazis.